We're just going to wait another minute to make sure everybody who registered signs in. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Sorry for some of our initial technical glitches, but we're off and we're running. So let me introduce myself. My name is Audrey Kent. Casey Halper and I are the co-chairs of Jewish Federation's Wellness Network, and it is our pleasure to welcome you to this program tonight. Jewish Federation is thrilled to be partnering with Englewood Hospital and in particular the Graff Center for Integrative Medicine on this program.
Well, what a year it has been. After a year of limiting our social interactions, we are now faced with balancing our concerns about reentry with our excitement for things to return to somewhat normal. Learning ways to shift our mindset is key to making a smooth transition for our children. Tonight's program is going to address these issues head on. Our families are passionate supporters of Federation and the work it does. Federation is like a safety net for this community. When needs are left unmet, it's Federation that uses its access, resources, knowledge to address them effectively and quickly. The COVID-19 pandemic was a perfect example. Within a few short weeks, Federation shifted all of its resources to addressing the constantly emerging needs. This is just one thing that appeals to me about this organization. If there are seniors who need food delivered to them, Federation will make it happen. If food pantries need to be stocked, Federation will make it happen. Life is constantly challenging us as individuals and as a community. I feel comforted knowing that Federation is there every day to make sure our community is safe.
And now allow us to introduce our speaker, Stefanie Dunnigan. Stefanie was born in New York, but raised in New Jersey. She is a teacher, publisher, and a motivational speaker. She was recognized as Teacher of the Year multiple times. She creates and facilitates professional programs for her colleagues and recently co-published 2 books for children. She has many areas of expertise, but her specialty is mindfulness and meditation. Please join me in welcoming Stefanie Dunnigan.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm just sharing. Can you see the screen? Here we go. Thank you. Welcome to Mindfulness for Parents and Kids, Shifting Your Mindset for the New Normal, part of the Rogers Family Meditation Program. And I'd like to thank the Graf Center, Englewood Health, and the Wellness Network for having me here tonight. And I'd also like to thank you for choosing to spend your time here with us. My name is Stefanie Dunnigan. I'm a fifth grade teacher. I've been teaching for 19 years, full-time mommy, full-time wife, and also full-time mommy to two fur babies and my 6-year-old son who's soon turning 7. I have a master's in reading and literacy, and I feel like I've earned an honorary PhD in worrying because over the years I've gotten really, really good at that until it was no longer sustainable. And that's what put me on the path of mindfulness, meditation, and learning how to shift my mindset. I'm really grateful that I established a personal mindfulness practice because it equipped me with skills to really navigate this pandemic and, figure out how to get through the challenges that have popped up, multiple quarantines, lockdown, and other challenging situations. And it's also allowed me to enrich my life in ways that I feel empowered, and I no longer give my power over to the outer circumstances. These are my fur babies who may bark while we're on. I will try to get to my mute button quickly if that happens. And because I'm on this path and I really just want to keep learning and growing, I continue to push myself out of my comfort zone. I'm an introvert. I am reserved. I typically feel shy around other people that I don't know. And I am pushing myself to get out there, share with others. I've developed and presented numerous professional developments in my district, and I worked on 2 books with my friend. Well, this past year has been anything but normal. Last year, when we first went into lockdown, I thought I was ready for virtual learning. I was prepared. I had everything ready to go. And after the first second, this is what happened. It's basically how the rest of the year went. There were a lot of tears on my end, and I really had to learn how to check and redefine my expectations, something that I'm still learning and figuring out. And then 2021 came along, and very interesting visitors have shown up while I'm teaching remotely, right? There's never a dull moment. Teaching math and a toilet paper head monster shows up. And this is one of my favorite quotes, but I feel like it's really relevant now. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. I feel like the storm is pouring down on me for probably about 14 months now. And so I am learning how to dance in the rain and just let myself get soaking wet instead of trying to control the storm. And since life as we knew it seems to be out the window, why not choose to create your new normal? So I like to envision a blank canvas. I'd like for you to keep this in the back of your mind as we go over a few things tonight, and think about what you would love to create. What would you like to bring into your life? In a way, this past year has given us an opportunity to reflect and perhaps redefine and recreate our lives. So can you take a moment, and I forgot to ask you in the beginning to grab something to write on and write with. So maybe take a moment to get something to write on. And let yourself just notice how you're feeling emotionally and mentally right now, and just jot that down. Just check in. And now notice how you're feeling physically, and jot that down. And what's your stress rating? From 0 to 10, 0 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. How are you feeling right now? You're coming off of life. You had a full day, right? Maybe you're not settled in yet. Where is your stress level? Jot down a number. And if you feel comfortable sharing, I invite you to hop into the chat and share. If you click on all panelists and attendees, everybody will be able to see, you'll be able to communicate together. If you click on all panelists, only panelists will be able to see. And if you have any questions that come up throughout, you can go to the Q&A and put those in there. So think about what makes you feel alive and what lights you up, because this will help guide you in what you want to create in your life. What makes you happy? For me, working with others, uplifting others, connecting with others really lights me up. So mindfulness. How do we shift our mindset for the new normal? Well, keeping in mind that this is your life and you get to choose how to experience it, because your choices create your experience. This workshop was designed to help you become more mindful, strengthen coping skills, shift your mindset, and just try on some strategies and create a pocket plan. Mindfulness is paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding of experience moment to moment. Mindfulness allows us to be present in our own lives and also in our parenting, and it starts with us. And then when it's authentic, you can share it with your family. But if you start a practice of your own, your family will see and they will watch you modeling it. And when they start to notice subtle changes, they might even start asking you questions and show some interest in what you've been doing. There are so many benefits of mindfulness and meditation, such as emotion regulation, mood, improved mood, confidence and self-esteem, empathy, resilience, coping, and social skills, ability to pay attention and focus, and an overall sense of well-being. So let's practice together. This is one of my favorite strategies. It's a great visual, and it's a glitter jar where the glitter represents our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And in my classroom, I shake up the glitter jar and we watch it swirl, and that's the word that I use. And when the glitter is swirling, it represents when we are swirling. Our thoughts are all over the place. Maybe we're not making good choices. Our feelings might be overwhelming. So the first step is to just notice it. I'm swirling, and that's okay. And just allow it for a moment. And then in the classroom, we practice letting the jar sit on the table, and we just watch as the glitter settles to the bottom. And as the glitter settles to the bottom, here we can watch this. You'll notice that the water starts to become clear again. And this also symbolizes your mind and your brain, your prefrontal cortex. When we're swirling, we can't think clearly. It's not a good time to make choices. It's really hard to learn. So if you just let yourself be still and let your glitter settle when you're swirling, You regain clarity, just like the glitter jar. And you let everything just settle. And then it's helpful to do some deep breathing. So this is really nice, the Obermann sphere. It's another good visual. When it expands, you can inhale and exhale. So when it's expanding, it represents your lungs filling with air, and then it's contracting as you're exhaling. It's even just peaceful to watch. Take another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. So let's check in again. How are you feeling emotionally, mentally, physically? Maybe take 1 minute and jot that down. And what is your stress rating now? Is it the same? Did it change? Jot it down. So our thoughts affect our feelings affect our actions, our choices, our behaviors affect our thoughts. So we can reshape the way we are thinking if we want to change how we're feeling. It's really helpful to consider more than one perspective. So these are pictures from a book that my son was looking at. They're ammonites. They were very common in Jurassic seas. And this first picture is what he was looking at when he was laying on his tummy on the floor. And then he stood up and walked over to me. I was on the other side of the book. And then he looked back at his book and he said, "Oh, this looks different from here." He was noticing that it looked different from a different view. He said, "When I was laying on the rug, it looked like a 9. And now from over here, it looks like a 6. So that was an introduction of perspective for him. So the way I see it isn't necessarily the way you see it. That's something important to remember nowadays, even with everything going on, opinions about vaccines, opinions about masks and what we should do and what we shouldn't do. It's important to remember to honor your perspective, but also make space for somebody else's. Just because you are right does not mean I am wrong. You just haven't seen life from my side. So take a look at this. I really like this when I came across it. And I would love for you to jump in the chat and share what this means to you. What are your thoughts about this? Social distancing, social distancing. Can we reframe our idea of social distancing? Can you see the opportunities in challenging situations? When you think about that, do you notice any resistance coming up? Do you notice any mental dialogue coming up to argue that there's nothing good about this situation? When life throws you lemons, make lemonade. That's right. Make it a part of your practice to look for opportunities, even when things are very challenging. So when you look at this peer, I'd also love for you to share in the chat what a peer means to you. What kind of words come to mind when you think of a peer? What does it represent for you? Foundation, stability, protection, elevation. So I like to use metaphors or acronyms to remember things or to share things. And so this was something that I was working on this past week to bring this together, to help us remember as we're practicing. So you can build your pier. You can build your foundation, and it stands for pause. Inhale and exhale and reframe. And so we just practiced. We looked at the glitter jar, right? We let ourselves settle. So we took a moment of pause. We were breathing with the Obermann sphere, inhaling and exhaling. And we considered reframing, right? Looking at a situation with more than one perspective. So as you build your pier and your foundation, you can then get ready to choose your boat and actually take action. Be an open-minded action taker. Open-minded is also referring to looking at multiple perspectives, looking for opportunities, making more space. And action taking is not always what we think it is. It doesn't always require a lot of energy. Sometimes the action that you should take would be taking a nap, letting yourself rest, letting yourself reflect. So let's practice building our pier and choosing our boat with some other strategies. It's one of my favorites, grounding. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Grounding exercise. I practice this every day. For myself, I practice this every day with my students. It's part of our morning meeting and our routine. So I invite you to please practice with me. It's so simple and subtle, and yet you may feel a shift, okay? So I usually start with placing your feet on the floor and really noticing your feet, connecting to the ground. And wiggle your toes, because what we want to do is come out of our thinking mind for a moment and back into our body. So wiggle your toes and then let them rest and notice how your feet feel on the floor. Take a deep breath in and out. And let's orient to our space by using our sense of sight. Look around you. I like to look at the walls around me first if I'm inside, and actually move your head and your neck with your eyes too. So look around, notice the walls around you. Look up, notice the ceiling. Look down, notice the floor. So you're helping yourself orient to your space. Now try looking across the room at something that's far away from you. Notice its color, size, texture, shape. And now look at something that's close to you and also notice the size and color and shape and texture. Bring your attention to what you can feel physically. Notice at least 4 things. How does the air feel on your skin? How do your feet feel on the floor? How does it feel when you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth? Notice what you can feel. Now notice at least 3 things that you can hear. You can hear my voice. You may hear soft music. What else do you hear in your space? 2 things you can smell. And 1 thing you can taste. And I always tell my students to take a sip of water. Because taking a sip of water also helps signal to your body that everything's okay, and it helps your nervous system calm down. So this is great to help you get out of your head and into your body, because your body is present and typically your mind is not. So think back to the quote about learning how to dance in the rain. And I'd like for you to think about some of the storms you are encountering now in your life. Can you jot down some of the storms on your paper? And how do you think this exercise may help you navigate that storm? Or perhaps your child is getting ready to go to camp after school ends, and they will encounter unfamiliar scenarios, right? Because for the past year, we've been pretty isolated or socializing in very small groups. And then that will change if they go to camp, and they'll be surrounded by more people. So it will be unfamiliar. And until it becomes familiar, they might feel some anxiety or some resistance. If you work on this strategy with your family, it will give them a wonderful tool that they can bring with them wherever they go. You can remind them to wiggle their toes when they get anxious, right? They could start to ground themselves. And no one will know what they're doing. They're just looking around, but they can notice what they see, feel, hear, smell, and taste. So we can also reshape the way we're feeling to change our thinking. Let's practice the starfish breathing. That's one of my favorites also. And this is so good for adults and kids of all ages. If you open up your hand like you're a starfish, okay, and you take your other hand and you use your pointer finger and you trace up each finger. So when we trace up, we inhale. At the top, we hold our breath. When you trace down, you exhale, and then we inhale again. So I invite you to practice with me. Are you ready? Inhale. Hold. Exhale slowly. Inhale. Hold. Exhale slowly. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold and exhale. And that can be done as many times as needed. If the kids are at school, their hand could be under their desk and they can do this. It's also very soothing, right? Just rubbing your finger against your hand is calming. If you have very little ones, you can do this on their hands. That would also be very soothing. And it's another way to ground yourself, get yourself out of your worried thoughts and remind yourself that you have a body. So these are in the resources that you will receive. And there's so much I'd like to do with you today that I'm going to keep moving. And these are some of my favorite breathing activities. And here's the Obermann sphere. And there are breathing exercises with different shapes and animals. So I'd like for you to check in again. How are you feeling now? Can you jot that down? And what is your stress rating? Has it changed? And there's no right or wrong. We can also reshape the way we are thinking to take new action. So it is so helpful to shift your lens to master your mind. Those are glasses that I use in the classroom as visuals. Our foundation is our lens on life, and we can learn how to shift our view from a lens of fear to a lens of love. So when you think of the word fear, some of these words might come up. It's very limiting. Feel disconnected, a lot of anxiety, right? Dread. dichotomy, right or wrong. Maybe there's, a gray area there. It's not right or wrong. So if you have a lens of love, sorry, my house is getting a little loud now. If you can view life through a lens of love, you can shift into freedom. It's limitless. You can see the opportunities, compassion, you feel connected. This takes a lot of practice constantly. So think of challenges that you are dealing with right now and ask yourself, is my view fear-based, right? The storms that you jotted down before, they're probably fear-based, the worries that you have. Can you shift it to a lens of love? I'm worried that my child is going off to camp and that they're going to feel so much anxiety because it's going to be new. Okay. And that feels heavy probably and restrictive and maybe confusing. You lose that clarity that we were gaining with the glitter jar. Can you shift to a different perspective? How can we look at that through a lens of love? It's a new opportunity for my child. The unfamiliar will become familiar over time. It's a new experience. We can keep communication open as a family. We're going to take baby steps and just stay curious. I'm not going to worry as much. I'm going to let in some curiosity. And I said as much because it's unrealistic to think that we can just throw the worry out the window and really disconnect from it. And if we have toxic positivity, that's not going to help at all. So we're not ignoring the fact that this is hard and it's scary. So maybe we can bring that into the love lens. This is hard and this is scary because it's new. But we're going to do this together. We're going to take baby steps. We're going to bring in some curiosity and openness to new opportunities. In the book that we wrote, I Choose Gratitude. I was looking at it earlier, and I feel like this is helpful for our lenses also. Gratitude can be a bridge to help us shift from fear to love. So looking at situations with new eyes, bringing in the gratitude, what you're grateful for, even in the challenges. I keep telling my students, we have Gratitude Tuesday, and so we talk about what we're grateful for, and I keep telling them that I'm actually grateful for my challenges because there's so much that I'm learning and I'm growing from them, right? Because I'm trying to rise to the occasion. So instead of shying away from my challenges or avoiding them like I used to, I am grateful when they show up. And Winnie the Pooh, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. So how can you balance your fears with your desire to spend more time together? This is another powerful strategy where you make space for all emotions and you hold out your hands. I invite you to practice with me. It seems like a silly strategy, but if you let yourself experience it and you tune in to what you're feeling inside, it might surprise you. So let's practice together, and then you'll be able to bring this to your family and your children so they can become more aware of how their body feels at any given time. So we're going to make space for all emotions, the uncomfortable ones and the comfortable ones, right? So in one hand, hold one emotion. I'm really nervous to get on that bus with the kids to go to camp. I'm really nervous about that. And you hold it, you make space for it. You don't try to push it away. And what's on the other end of that? but I'm also excited. I'm excited to see my friends. I'm excited to make new friends. I'm excited to go to camp. Is it possible to feel all of that? So in one hand, maybe you're holding the worry or the fear about something. And in the other hand, you're holding the possibility and the openness and maybe the excitement. And when you hold that, tune into your hands. Does one feel heavier and one feel lighter? How does the rest of your body feel? How does your chest feel? Your toes, your tummy? And then when you're holding it all, fear and excitement, move your hands closer together slowly and just notice in your body what might be changing in your tummy, in your chest, in your arms. And then slowly move your hands further apart and notice what might be changing. Maybe you felt some anxiety kick in. Maybe you can find the spot where everything settles. Can you find it? Keep moving your hands until you find where it's really comfortable. Maybe your heart rate slows down. Maybe your tummy settles. Maybe your chest feels calm. And just hold it. So we say hold them lightly and just stay curious. One is not good and one is not bad. I hope you practiced with me. We can also reshape the way we are feeling to take new action, and perhaps that activity even shifted how you feel, or even grounding. When I ground, I usually feel more hopeful, more present, and it affects my choices in a good way. So let's check in again. Just notice, how are you feeling? And what is your rating? So these are some strategies that we went over today. We didn't do the guided meditation yet, which maybe we'll do now. Why don't we, let's see. I'll just leave this up. Okay, let's do the guided meditation and then we're going to work on our pocket plan. So get comfortable, feet are on the floor. Take a nice deep breath in and out. And I invite you to lower your gaze or allow your eyes to close. Wiggle your toes and just feel your feet on the floor. Sense your whole body sitting here. Softening the face, softening the jaw. Allow your tongue to rest in your lower palate and notice that you are breathing. Feeling the breath as it naturally flows in and out of the body. Just being here. Breathe in and out. And as you're ready, take a deep breath and allow your eyes to open. And you have many strategies and techniques that you use that work for you when you're stressed. What are your go-to strategies? And I'd like for you to think about that and consider some of the strategies tonight that resonate with you. Is there something on here that felt good when you practiced, or that you would love to continue to practice and just see what it does for you? And if you create a pocket plan, this is something that you can have in your back pocket for yourself and your children. And it's a way to be proactive so that if you encounter a moment of crisis or your children feel very anxious and overwhelmed, they would have this pocket plan already decided upon, and they would go to it and continue to practice. So 5 or 6 or 4, whatever you think is appropriate, strategies would be great. Jot down the ones that you think really work for you. Talk to your children about what they think may work for them. And it's really important to practice this daily. It doesn't have to take long. You know, you can spend about 5 minutes a day on your mindfulness practice. And it's the consistency that really makes a difference. And over time, you will notice subtle changes, and it will continue to change until one day you look back and it just feels like total transformation. When you practice every day, when you're calm, when you're in crisis and you really need it, you will be able to implement the strategies. It's not going to work so well if you wait until you're very overwhelmed or very upset. So I would also love to know what you're putting on your pocket plan, or maybe one strategy that resonates with you. But this, most importantly, this is for you and for your family. And how nice would this be, to have a family night and talk about what works for each person and create your pocket plans together. And if you let each other know what your plans are, you can help each other when you need it. And as the parents, model it, practice it for you, model it, and it'll make a really big difference. And remember to reflect. Reflect all the time and reevaluate your plan. If you find it's not working, think about what might not be working. Are you following through with your set goals? Do you need to review and reset your goals? But, life has been pretty difficult for all of us over the past several months. And there are so many wonderful people around us to help. Reach out. Reach out to your child's school. Reach out to a counselor, a therapist, your doctor, a coach, a mentor. Please know that you're not alone. And we can help each other through anything. I really feel like the strategies that I've chosen to share with you tonight have helped me so much. And the nice thing about them is that it helps anyone of any age in any scenario. It can be applied to anything that we're dealing with. Remember to continue to practice to build your peer. Pause, inhale and exhale, reframe, and then choose your boat and take some action. And just allow yourself to breathe. And I'd love to see some questions coming in. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put that in the Q&A. And thank you so much for spending this time with us tonight. Here we go.
Stefanie, thank you. This was very peaceful, first of all, but also so informative and so helpful for many of us who are trying to navigate all of these changes. We definitely invite anybody who's, participating, that if you have questions, to please post them in the Q&A. We would be happy to share them with Stefanie and hear her thoughts on everything. But just to kind of as I was watching, I had a few questions just to kick it off. You had mentioned at the very end, you said something about how introducing a strategy like this when somebody is actually in crisis is not the time to teach them the skill. When do you start teaching these strategies? When do you introduce them to children? Or is there a specific age that you would recommend starting them? And the second half of it is, how many would you introduce until you feel like they actually find the ones that are going to go into that pocket plan, you know?
Oh, I love that question. So I learned a lot from my son. When he was born, I would watch him and I was in awe because he was in the present moment all the time. And that was something that I wasn't in, right? He was naturally in the present moment. And then, now that he's getting a little bit older, he's thinking more. So I'm seeing the shift. And so I would say, as the parent, when your little one is with you watching you, pre-verbal, they're in your arms, you're feeding them, you're hugging them, they're watching your every move. And so you are modeling all the time, even when you don't think you are. So it goes back to, it starts with you. And it's fun. So if anyone has misconceptions about mindfulness being hard and that you're doing it wrong, you're not doing it wrong. Just practice a little bit every day. Just stop and breathe. Show them how when you get upset that you calm yourself down before you move forward. So it starts when they're born. Or it starts when they're in your honestly, it starts when they're in your tummy, because if you can work on calming your nervous system, that affects them physically. I've also noticed that my nervous system is directly connected to my son's nervous system. So when I calm myself down, I see a change in him just because of the work I'm doing on me. Then when they start to get older, we're naturally pointing out, this is red and this is pink and that's also mindfulness. And when they get old enough where you can start practicing some strategies, you show them the glitter jar, you can use the ball and so many other things. I would say introduce one strategy at a time. The pace at which your child would be comfortable. And when you feel like they're practicing it and they understand it, bring in another one and really go back to that over and over again. And so over time, let's say they have 5 strategies, they can choose the one that they like the best in that moment. Does that answer?
So that's very helpful. Thank you. I'm looking to see if there are other questions. I'm just looking. Hold on, let me put this in the right way. As kids are starting to re-enter, as you were talking about going to camp, I feel like everybody's sports schedules have really started to pick up, and it's overwhelming for the parents to manage the schedules. And then there's the piece of re-entering that some of our kids are like, wait, all of a sudden we're allowed to go do more than we were for the last 14 months. Are there indicators, things that parents should be looking for that could cue us that maybe our child is not handling these changes well? Or are there things, other things that we should be paying attention to help our kids navigate through those changes, and ourselves even?
Yeah. And mindfulness helps with that because it's just awareness, right? So when you're acting differently. You might not realize it at first, but over time you'll realize, oh my goodness, I'm not myself, right? And your children really well. So I would say first, if you notice anything different, that might be an indicator. I would say avoidance behaviors. If you're noticing avoidance behaviors, if you're noticing almost like an overreaction emotionally when before they did not respond that way, more tears, more anger, more rigidness, frustration. I had a student today. I noticed he went to the bathroom 7 times, and I quietly talked to him about, are you okay? And then the conversation led to, I don't like being around a lot of people, and the bathroom is the only place I can go to be alone. I said, do you know what an introvert is? They gain energy from being alone. I understand. And we talked about ways that he could gradually feel more and more comfortable with it, and ways that he can communicate with me so that I know the difference between I need to actually use the bathroom and I need a moment to breathe. So communication is key, whether it's with the people you're working with and helping, or your family, your children. Keep an open dialogue and they'll tell you what's going on.
Thank you.
You're
I think
welcome.
that's very helpful. One other thing that had come up was if there were physical signs that might lead someone to think that they actually are really sick, but it's really more anxiety, or there are things to keep in mind that the way anxiety can present itself physically.
Aches, right? Tummy ache, headache. And you might get the hunch that they're because sometimes it's really manifesting as pain physically, because emotionally they're not able to cope, I'll say, and they're having a hard time dealing with it. It kind of gets stuck in the body. And then you might also notice that they might be making it up, right? Because sometimes when they say, oh, I have a tummy ache, then they're getting the attention that they do want and need. They might get out of doing something and they catch on really quickly. If I say this, I don't have to go and face that. So just, keep your eyes open for what you feel might be an excuse and talk about that. And then give them strategies, like I did with my student. I said, you can tell me privately in the chat, I need a moment, and I would honor that. Or I really need to use the bathroom. So you would have the same conversation with your children. If you're noticing a pattern, a tummy ache over multiple days, or a headache over multiple days. And if it's not from allergies, it's not from eye strain, it's not from other things, you can talk to them about what they're feeling. Teach them how to name emotions. I just read something that said research is showing that when you name an emotion, the amygdala is less intense. That's the part of the brain that triggers the stress response, where it's fight or flight, freeze or faint. So the more they know how to name emotions past just happy, sad, angry, right? If you can help them expand their vocabulary and identify their emotions, it takes the power away from it, and it empowers them to make choices. And some of the strategies we did tonight could help them too, viewing it through different lenses, practicing different scenarios. I would even suggest maybe role playing. Let's say they're avoiding going to school. Role play with your child. If this happens, what could you do? And have them practice it and talk to you about how it makes them feel.
Really helpful. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no other questions, I think you have given us so much to think about and so many resources and strategies. And we really appreciate you taking your time to share them with us. And we appreciate that you're going to be sharing them post this presentation as well. I think it's a lot to look back on and really reflect on. I know that for me, I picked up a lot of strategies that I want to kind of be mindful of and keep in the back of my pockets for my kids and for myself. So I really appreciate it. And, just thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us tonight. Federation has a robust calendar of events, and we hope to see you again in the future. Stefanie, thank you again. Thank you to the Graph Center for setting this up, and we hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.